Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have about 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Each week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our website and discuss the implications they might have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Anna, how are we doing this week?
Good. I'm glad to have you back. You are better at hosting than I am, even though I put up a good front.
I thought you did a great job. I really enjoyed last week's episode.
I'm not born to host this game show like you are. It's not.
Well, I did, I got to, as I was completely lifeless, I listened to the podcast and, I missed it. It was, even though I was physically incapable of even standing.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear Anna say she's okay stepping back because last week she was enthused and energized by the power.
Oh yeah,
control.
A lot of that
she had over the program.
I did talk a lot of game last week, but it was all a front.
Very good. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Excellent. How about yourself?
Feeling a lot better.
Glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, still a lot lighter. All right. Before we get started, we wanted to thank our sponsor, Oil Eater. Oil Eater cleaners and heavy-duty degreaser were specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents that are used by industries throughout the world. The company's ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used with parts washers, shop floors, equipment, and more. Click the link below for a free sample or visit IEN.com/oileater. Get yourself a free sample from the Today in Manufacturing podcast. All right, let's jump into our first story this week. Tesla quietly cut steering component amid chip shortage. In January, Tesla bragged that its 2021 deliveries were up by about 87%. While other automakers struggled with production due to the chip shortage, Tesla had a secret recipe for success. The company took chips from a steering component they determined to be redundant and used them elsewhere. The chips are for a secondary electronic control unit that serves as a backup for the mechanical process used to steer. No big deal unless the car is going to drive itself. If not now, soon. Well, Elon Musk says Tesla is on the verge of achieving full self-driving. But for any customers missing the ECU, they'll need a retrofit. And they might not know who they are. Tesla engineers decided to keep the public in the dark since they didn't think that it posed a functionality or safety risk. So Anna, did the customers need to know?
Well, I think there's a few issues in play here. Yeah, I mean, whether it should have been disclosed, clearly the reason you disclose the engineering change is because it relates to self-driving and these vehicles' ability to be updated over the air, right? Mm-hmm. So I think where it gets murky is when you're public and these things you say on these earnings calls actually matter, like him saying, I think we're going to be able to, roll out the self-driving functionality by the end of the year. It's an over-the-air update. He knew though that they took these out, right? So that's where I feel like it gets, I don't know, maybe legally or SEC weird, but I don't know enough about that to say what happens.
Never really bothers him much.
It doesn't, yeah. But I don't know. I think overall, the plan was smart. I think it enabled Tesla to kind of ride out this chip shortage in a much more successful way than many of its competitors. Mm-hmm. In fact, Verge reported over the summer that Elon had admitted on an earlier earnings call that Tesla had been swapping out firmware and then rewriting its software over a matter of weeks. Mm-hmm. And while this is kind of unorthodox, that's the Tesla way to be unorthodox, right? And to be nimble and to make changes and as they go. Yeah. This article that we sourced for the video kind of speaks to how long the change process typically is in automotive. And one of the analysts they interviewed said that it usually takes an auto company 1,000 hours of testing and review before they would make this type of change. Mm-hmm. But even though that's precedent, you can see why Tesla was kind of confident making this change. They said that they had sort of done this before. Mm-hmm. Run the steering column with just one of the chips. And so they didn't think that there was a safety or a performance issue that was going to take place there. So I think I don't know. Like, does it show that maybe the other automakers are being a little bit slow and stodgy on some of this stuff? Maybe. But if you already don't trust Tesla, then I don't think this helps you like run towards that Model
Doesn't
X.
give you any more peace of mind.
No, it doesn't. But for other people, they might not see the risk, you know?
Yeah, Jeff, it actually, this move kind of reminded me of what we were talking about with other automakers a couple of weeks ago about how it seems like they're selling almost like pre-recalled vehicles, where it's just like, yeah, I can't do this now, but once we have the part, we're going to add it, and then it's yours. Just buy it now.
Yeah, I mean, they do need to disclose this, especially because he's been such a champion of this autonomous vehicle operation and that type of functionality. Made big promises about that coming this year or by the end of this year, which is not going to happen. So he does need to be forthcoming there. In comparing this to what other automakers are currently doing, there's a great spot right in the middle. Okay. You probably can move more nimbly than the GMs and Fords and Toyotas of the world.
Yeah.
But you also need to be transparent with what you're doing because, we're putting people into these vehicles.
Right.
This isn't just a roller coaster car. This is something that you're operating on the vehicle. People need to know about.
Yeah.
Okay. What it kind of reminded me of, this had a weird overlap. I'm rewatching those Iron Man movies, and they did use Elon Musk as sort of a living model of Tony Stark in these movies. And you watch him when he's putting together the Iron Man machine or suit, and he's kind of like throwing stuff out. Don't need that. Don't need this. Don't need that. You could almost see Musk almost in that same sort of mode. You're like, hey, we don't have chips for this. That's all right. We'll just plug it in here.
Yeah.
Which again, good call.
Yeah.
Getting more cars out there. It doesn't affect the overall functionality in terms from a safety perspective and all that. But you do have to tell people what's going on. Just because you're the smartest guy in the room, that's not always good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I completely agree that, Tesla customers are buying these cars with the understanding that autopilot's going to be a thing. And so while it's not perfect now, it is going to be a possibility in the future, especially, and it's going to be something that's enabled with one of Tesla's over-the-air software updates. But, I mean, you need to know, like, all of a sudden everyone's autopilot is being turned on, and it's just like, sorry, guys. Turns out there's a handful of you guys from the that pandemic. You're not going to get it.
We sold you brick autopilot.
Yeah. And I mean, I was kind of astonished with the amount of SpaceX and Tesla news that we saw come out this week. SpaceX had the satellites falling out of the sky, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But also accusations of racial discrimination and other recalls for Tesla. It's fourth recall in just 2 weeks. I mean, Tesla has had a couple of, bad news cycles. Although, they also talked about how they made record profits last year. But the other thing that I thought was more interesting is that I'm not sure if this strategy is going to play into it, but they plan to make 50% more vehicles this year, but they're all going to be the same. No new models in 2022. So Anna and Jeff, that means no Cybertruck this year, no small EV. That's, that $25,000 price point that he keeps talking about. But anytime he has these calls, he's just like, oh, it's coming. It's coming. Just not this year.
The eternal optimist.
Well, and he's built some credibility in there because we were really hard on him, or at least I was, and a lot of stuff I was covering, talking about how they were losing money for how many years, just hemorrhaging hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, it turned out.
Yeah.
It turned out okay. He came through and everything's going well at Tesla. The recalls are concerning to me. Yeah. Because when you look at a story like this, where he basically is just saying, this will work, this will be fine, we'll just do it this way, without maybe doing as much of the R&D or due diligence as other automakers do. And although those recalls that we talked about, they were, let's be honest, pretty minor.
Yeah, minor stuff.
Not something even related to what we're talking about here with these chips. Still, it does bring in those quality concerns. And in a more competitive landscape, that becomes a real factor. I think this year, Tesla is going to struggle to maintain those same sales figures that they did in 2021. They're certainly not going to see the ridiculous percentage growth, but even to maintain, I think is going to be tough.
Yeah. Well, and it is like Tesla is something that personally as a consumer, I'm like right on the line as to like, I'm almost there in terms of, pulling the trigger on actually buying an EV or a Tesla. And it's just like something like this happens. And it's just like, all right, we'll just take a couple of steps back. We're just going to wait till the steering chip comes back.
Well, and like, Jeff was talking about the recalls. Like one of the biggest issues they took flack for over the last couple of months is because they were issuing, over-the-air software updates on minor issues, but they weren't disclosing them again. So it's like when you just pile on this lack of transparency, you kind of wonder if that at some point is going to start to erode, people's trust in that brand.
Yeah. All right. Our fourth most popular story this week. Abandoned Foxconn building finds new life. While anything Foxconn related in Wisconsin seems to come with a dark cloud, new jobs are coming to the state as a food coloring manufacturer has announced plans to take over an otherwise unused Foxconn building. Natural food coloring maker Oterra will move into the former Foxconn Opus building in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, and create some 100 jobs. The building was erected in 2016. It was the first facility Foxconn occupied when it began developing a massive manufacturing campus. Foxconn abandoned the Opus building. Oterra will begin installing production equipment immediately, with production starting in early 2024. Oterra makes food coloring for beverages, packaged foods, plant-based products, and pet food. So, Jeff, one thing I was curious about, do you think it's easier or harder to do business with Mount Pleasant after this Foxconn fiasco?
Great question.
Well, you would hope they were very open to Ontario coming in and doing what they needed to do and to take over some of these buildings. I think before we were inevitably going to go down and talk about Foxconn and all the crap that happened there in Pleasant Prairie. Mm-hmm. Before we do that, I mean, let's recognize the fact that we've got a foreign business growing its presence in the U.S.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Congrats to Oterra. Also grateful to them for all of the things they do to make like the beverages and baked snacks that I eat look much better than they probably do in their natural state.
Yeah, thanks for making things other than brown.
Yeah, I'm sure the Gatorade does not naturally come out that lemon lime or fruit punch color that I enjoy looking at and drinking. So thanks to them.
Enjoy looking. That's what I love about Gatorade. I just enjoy looking at it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's so pretty.
It makes it more palatable than if it was. It's, I'm sure, natural color, which is not, mountain berry blue or whatever.
Oh, it's no, I mean, you're right there. Like, I am a fan of Pedialytes in a pinch. And when you drink it clear, but it's supposed to taste grape, you're just like, I don't know. There's some sort of disconnect in your head. Yeah. So, as a result of natural food coloring businesses.
All right, guys.
Oterra. One of the things too, so I inevitably get to Foxconn and what it did to this area. One of the things that I'm going to be looking for is, did you hear about this book? Foxconn?
Yeah.
Imaginary Jobs, Bulldozed Homes, and Sacking of Local Government by Lawrence Tabak. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. And when you look at the Google map of where this business is and everything around it, it's just bare.
Gone.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at 2,400 acres that were supposed to go into this Foxconn development. They've had buildings built on like 5% of that. Yeah. So you've just got all this vacant land right on the interstate. It's good to see some of it going to use. But the hardest thing for me when I look at this is they knocked down 75 homes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and a lot using eminent domain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would hope, I mean, it's obviously not going to work out that way. But if we've got some jobs coming into the area, maybe they look at squaring away these folks who lost their house over all these promises that were made. The other thing, looking into this more and more, who was at bigger fault here? The state of Wisconsin, the city of Pleasant Prairie? I think basically, Foxconn at the end of the day, if this was taking away from the 10 billion, 13,000 job promises that came out of that, and it was what it ended up being, which is like 1,500 jobs.
Yeah.
And like, what is it, $600 or $800 million in development?
Yeah, 672 million. Yeah.
That's great. Mm-hmm. That in and of itself is a very positive thing. But in the scope of what we were promised, it's horrible and it's a disappointment.
Yeah.
And in looking at some of this stuff, really, I think the biggest people to blame are the municipalities, the state of Wisconsin. Yeah. Foxconn basically probably said, well, we'd be interested possibly in maybe doing some of that. If you want to give it to us, we'll probably do it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that they were as enthusiastic about those plans as they allowed the politicians at the moment to state.
No, I agree. I definitely think that the politicians in the state are most to blame in this situation. And that's why, Anna, I was really interested, if you're sitting on these planning commissions or on these boards in the town of Mount Pleasant and Oterra comes saying they're going to do these things, there has to be at least one person that's always like, but really? Are you? Because right now we just have a lot of vacant buildings that are, roller rinks,
but if you look back at like the Foxconn thing and all of the like completely over the top language and how that was being sold to the community.
Oh, yeah.
Like President Trump, I think, predicted that factory would be the eighth wonder of the world, I think was his wording. And what a crash from the insane expectations that were built up, and then if you look at like the tax breaks that were being offered, which was over $4 billion, the largest tax break package in history, I think, from a state. I mean, it was just, and it was contentious when those incentives were approved. And then this whole thing crashed and burned. So like, obviously people are justifiably angry. There were people that were angry about it before it even crashed and burned. Right.
Yeah.
But what was really interesting to me is like, so obviously this left an imprint on us and the local community, very much so, because we were kind of front row for this. But it's funny to see how much this stuff still flies. Like no one's doing the $4 billion thing, but we did run a story this week about the Kansas state legislature approving over $1 billion in tax incentives for a company that's not been named. Yeah. And not just not revealed publicly, like the politicians involved in this, they don't know who the company is.
Like a handful of them. Right?
Only a couple of them.
Yeah. NDA. Yeah.
You're right. And then, but most of them don't know the company and they don't know what they produce. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I know that's not without precedent. People have done this before, approved incentives for companies that want to, remain unnamed until everything goes through. But it's also not without like a tremendous amount of risk, in my opinion. I mean, I guess I'm surprised in this day and age where there's so many regions right now that are so desperate to fill job openings that they already have, that we're still doing this in such a way that doesn't apply, I think, enough due diligence to this process. I mean, like, we know that a lot of regions are getting hamstrung or have over the years, almost to the point where they're being extorted by businesses who say, I want money to come. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, I need incentives to stay. If we want to expand, we need money for that, and on it goes. If ever there was a time to reform that process, maybe it's now, or at least to, put some more structure around it, I think. I don't know. It was very confusing to me that this kind of stuff is still going on because not only do a lot of these legislators not know who this company is or what they make, but like how many times do we talk about facilities that are being put in somewhere and the whole community is in an uproar because they don't want that type of plant to be there?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know anything about this. So why are we still making these extravagant promises to all these businesses? I think that something needs to be done to better that process.
It's going to be some sort of massive animal rendering plant.
It could be.
It's just, it needs to be to scale. Yeah. Again, looking at what Foxconn actually has done, that's a win. Right. That's a positive, but that wouldn't have made headlines.
Yeah.
13,000 jobs, that makes a headline, and that's what gets people fired up both ways.
That would have made headlines, at least. I mean, maybe just on a local and regional level. Maybe it wouldn't have been across like the national news. But it was like, what I also found interesting is that this particular facility is where all the photo ops were. When the president came to town and the governor was there and they were all standing championing this as the eighth wonder of the world, it was in front of this building that they didn't even really use and now have abandoned. And I just thought it was an interesting sort of representation of what became of that entire project. I did see the same similarities in Kansas as you did, Anna, where they say it's the state's largest ever taxpayer-funded incentives to attract thousands of new jobs. Mm-hmm. It's just like, be careful with that language. Because, everyone knows how to pull the right levers and push the right buttons, but it's like, being on the other side of that, it can get ugly. Like, and I was surprised with how unanimously people voted for the package. The only one of the people that said no to it was this Republican state senator, Molly Baumgartner, who said, we want to buy these magic beans. We won't tell you where it's going to be, what it's going to be, just that it's going to be great. And how many times are communities going to be sold magic beans? Mm-hmm. I mean, how old is Jack and the Beanstalk? Did people learn nothing? Come on. It's taught to kids for a reason. No, it's, hopefully it pans out in Kansas.
Well, and the thing, too, I just wanted to throw in there, they're talking about tax benefits, and that was the big number around Foxconn.
Yeah.
According to the guy who wrote this book, Tabak, the city has spent over $500 million just in infrastructure upgrades and buying property. So it is, again, all this stuff is just waiting to be used.
It's not a big city exactly either. Like
26,000 people.
Where are they getting all that money?
I think I think by 2035, that's when the big bill comes due that might bankrupt Mount Pleasant. I think they have until 2035 to really figure things out, because they had to pay. One of the big things was the water too, right? They had to redirect all that water from Lake Michigan. They signed on a guaranteed deal with the utility to make that happen. And so that bill's going to come due in 2035. And I think that's going to be pretty sooner than people think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I said Pleasant Prairie. It is Mount Pleasant.
No,
You're
you said Pleasant Point, and you were going 70 show. I was like, you're going Point Pleasant. I'm just like, hello, Wisconsin. All right. Our third most popular story this week: SpaceX satellites falling out of orbit after solar storm. See, I said we'd get there. What fun is this world without a little fire in the sky? SpaceX recently launched a fleet of satellites. Unfortunately, they were hit by a solar storm, and now they're tumbling out of orbit. Up to 40 of the 49 small satellites launched last week have either re-entered the atmosphere and burned up. The culprit was a geomagnetic storm that made the atmosphere denser, which increased the drag on the Starlink satellites. All efforts to save the satellites have failed. SpaceX has nearly 2,000 Starlink satellites orbiting Earth to provide internet service to remote corners of the world. The satellites weigh less than 575 pounds, but still weigh 575 pounds, but they don't pose any risk in orbit or to the ground. Anna, your thoughts on SpaceX's latest highly public failure?
Yeah, it was, a very...
How do you really feel?
Well, they go big or go home, and they went big and home on this one.
Down in flames?
Yeah, down in flames.
Well, it was definitely a very sensational sounding headline. And then when you read deeper, you're like, oh, okay.
Right?
So nothing happens. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the most alarming part of it for me was that SpaceX described this as a unique situation, which isn't necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they made it, to me, it's like they're like, oops, I mean, what do we do? But
yeah.
But if you look at some of the response from the scientific community, this was not actually a surprise to Tesla that this was happening. So I read this report in Time that called these doomed spacecraft and said that SpaceX was warned by scientists and instead ignored those warnings and chose to move forward with the launch despite the storm being predicted to impact those specific days.
Mm-hmm.
So SpaceX thought they knew better. They thought they could ride it out, and obviously they could not. And that's kind of what scares me the most, because I think I have concerns with the idea that private business is sort of policing space right now.
Yeah.
And
Space cops.
Space Force. That's right.
I don't know. It just seems to me like maybe they have less incentive to do the right thing when there's no regulation or requirement for them to do so. And we've seen that before on Earth side. And it's not like NASA's running SpaceX. You know what I mean? Like SpaceX has a board of directors that are like SpaceX investors. Elon Musk's brother, he's on the board.
Yeah. He's impartial.
It's not like there's like a board of global stakeholders that care about the future of the human race. It just seems like another example of an Elon Musk-led company.
Yeah.
Just kind of rolling the dice on something that could have a bigger impact. You know what I mean? Obviously in this case, we know that these satellites are going to burn up before they come down. There's not a lot of risk. But I don't know that, he sends rockets up. We know that a rocket booster of his is headed towards the moon in a couple of weeks. What happens when something happens that they don't, that could have a risk to people on Earth or maybe even in space? What if something hits the International Space Station? They need to be listening to scientists. No, is my point.
Well, and the way you say that, scientists warn them, and we're not talking about a couple of guys in NASA, in a room, just oh my God, have you seen the numbers? This could be really bad. It was the equivalent of meteorologists being no, look at the radar.
Yeah.
It's all purple and red. It's a bad time to try to take off a plane right now.
Yeah.
And it was just they just didn't listen to it, Jeff. And as a result, lost 80% of their payload.
Yeah. So these solar storms that took these satellites out, they're actually very common.
Right.
Yeah.
They occur very frequently. Right now, we're in a more aggressive part of the solar cycle, apparently.
Yeah.
So, it should not have been overly surprising to SpaceX if they were paying attention, like Anna said, to the scientists that this could possibly happen. I think this is going to happen more. I think we're going to see so much more of this happening. We're looking at the private sector global space launch sector being worth over $30 billion within the next couple of years. I mean, it's growing through the roof. It's not just SpaceX. There's a handful of other firms that are doing this, and we applaud this. We love all these low orbit satellites because it improves our internet access. It helps us with our cell phone connections, all of that stuff. But based on where they are and with this whole solar cycle, a lot of these satellites are going to go down. The other thing is we had over 2,500 satellites launched in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
There's somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000 of these satellites floating in low Earth orbit right now around our planet. So if you've got this aggressive cycle from the sun, you've got more and more satellites going out there, this stuff is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it is because it's like it's flares from the sun that cause this kind of disruption.
No, I was just laughing because it just sounded like you were calling the sun rude.
It's being very grumpy right now.
Know your role. You're in the way of progress, son. I mean, one thing that I just found was like, we've all been on flights where it's been canceled and the only feedback they give you is, it was an act of God. And you look outside and you're like, it doesn't look like an act of God. It looks like everything's fine. And I just like a geomagnetic storm, that is a suitable act of God. Just like
not much you can do about that one.
No. And I also wanted to talk about Starlink a little bit because it is a very cool and potentially incredible project. My family is on the Starlink waiting list because there is no other way to our cottage is in such a remote area. There's no other way to get internet access. So we're on a waiting list, and they're just like, obviously it's going to be longer now. Because
that was your satellite.
But the other thing was, do you have an interest in keeping the skies clean-ish? Because that's a big thing with people that we're going to throw all of this up there. And I mean, already now when you look up in the sky, you think you're looking at a beautiful starry night, and then you realize like 80% of the stars are blinking.
Yeah. So, astronomers are not pleased with the Starlink program, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean...
well, what's the trade-off?
Yeah.
When you're up at your cabin, what do you want?
Oh, I don't want
internet or less light pollution.
This is a family argument. We don't need to drag into here. But the majority of the family wants internet, so we're gonna get internet. Yeah. Again, I'm on board. No. So, but I know, like, he's trying to restore communications to what is it, Tonga after the volcano. So. A lot of great things, particularly giving areas in more remote access that need access to the internet, not just people with a second home in northern Wisconsin.
Well, I guess if I'm looking at this, I would hope the quantity is for right now. Yeah. Getting Starlink up and running, potentially the global positive impact is amazing. Ideally, as with this technology is allowed to evolve, you wouldn't need as many. Yeah.
Or you could make it like safer or not as much light pollution. Have you guys ever gone outside and seen these when they fly over?
No.
Like, it is incredible. I was out walking my dog, and this lady is just losing it, like staring at the sky, screaming like we are under attack. She's just like, do you see it? Do you see it? And I just looked up, and I'm just like, it's Starlink. You just
acted like you did.
I'm like, it's Starlink. Yes, it looks like that. And she's just like, what is that, man? I'm like, that's Starlink. It's everywhere. Just read. Google Starlink. That's what you're looking at. And she just like shuts down and walks home. And I haven't seen her since.
She's like, this guy does not get it.
Yeah. She's like, they've already taken over his body, man.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I was surprised I didn't see it on Nextdoor.
What would have happened if you'd have been like, I don't see anything?
Yeah. There's nothing there. It's coming towards us. Probably nothing good for her.
No.
Nothing good. No.
Sheeple. What's sheeple? What's sheeple a single person?
Shaperson? Way to go, you shaperson.
I don't think that's going to work.
I might not take off as much as sheeple.
Just hashtag it. See what happens.
All right. Our second most popular story this week. Verizon engineer dupes Grainger out of nearly $1 million. A 44-year-old Verizon network engineer has been charged with committing about $1 million in fraud. Jeremy Elkins has been indicted on a number of charges, including wire fraud. The Ohio man allegedly used an old Verizon work order number to place multiple fake orders from WW Grainger Incorporated. Grainger provides tools and equipment for Verizon service vans. Elkins placed 46 unauthorized orders and personally picked up a majority of them. The equipment was worth about $936,000. He sold the products, though the DOJ doesn't say how, and used the proceeds to buy 2 boats and a motorcycle. He placed 20 more orders with Grainger valued at $954,000, so he was at least getting smarter with bigger orders, but he never picked up the equipment. He also used the company card on hotels, restaurants, bars, pawn shops, and auction houses, and somehow, Anna, Verizon only took a $24,000 loss on this. And I mean, of all the craziness happening here, there was a weapons charge too. I couldn't believe that Verizon was only at Verizon looks at it and they're just like, that's kind of a write-off,
Yeah, if I had like $1 million that I just basically found, I don't think I'm shopping at the pawn shop.
Right?
Get over to Zales.
I mean, sometimes,
Sales.
You can't change the person. He bought a boat and he bought a couple boats and a motorcycle. He's like, I got some left. I'm going to go score some DVDs.
I guess. $2 a piece.
Right?
I guess my biggest question was why Grainger was on the hook for these losses. I mean, he was an employee of Verizon at the time of the orders, correct?
Right.
So Verizon's procurement process had enough holes in it that he was able to game the system. Like, how was that not Verizon's problem? If my kid ordered $500 worth of toys on Amazon, maybe Amazon works with me on that if I haven't already taken the toys and sold them. But at that point, I think they don't care, right? So I don't know. It's weird, but companies have their own purchasing processes. Some have what the industry calls Wild West procurement, which just means that there's many approved buyers. And honestly, it's really hard for buyers as it is for sellers to handle this. It's this kind of scenario that reinforces why suppliers like Grainger push customers to streamline their purchasing and consolidate their suppliers, just because it's so much easier to track fraud and loss.
Yeah.
And in this case, I guess I don't know why Grainger would get dragged for this, but
I mean, is it because the equipment must not have thrown up any red flags. He was obviously buying equipment that could be used on these Verizon network vans, but I was surprised, Jeff, that no red flags went up.
Yeah, kind of building off of what Anna was talking about there, one of the things that we always champion is more digitization of all of these processes, streamlining things so there's greater transparency, greater visibility. And in addition to operational aspects, supply chain aspects, it's for purchasing as well.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that does come through, though, is in that process, the more streamlined it becomes, potentially the easier it is for bad actors to get in there and do stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's still unclear. We don't know a lot of the facts on how exactly Grainger got screwed to this extent. There had to be something going on where basically the payment was going through Grainger, but Verizon was not fulfilling that payment. I don't know exactly what was happening there. But it in my mind, it sheds a greater light on all of these security issues that have really been highlighted more by the pandemic and brought into greater focus because they're happening more frequently now.
Yeah.
We talked about cybersecurity a ton, but fraud and purchasing fraud is a huge factor as well. I was looking at something from LexisNexis. They tracked things since the beginning of the pandemic, since March of 2020. They've seen e-commerce fraud increase by over 83%, retail fraud by over 60%, financial services and lending both up over 40%. So as this becomes more of an issue, obviously losing, in this case, almost $1 million.
Yeah, and almost two.
Right,
he
easily.
just didn't pick up the second million. Yeah.
I think one of the opportunities, and it's not on Grainger, you can't say, you can understand why they would not want to be more public about this, but potentially they have an opportunity to say, look what happened to us. This could happen to you guys as well.
Yeah.
Here's one of our solutions, not giving away all the secret sauce, but here are some of the ways that we can prevent this from happening as an industry. Yeah. And those types of best practices potentially go a long way for suppliers, manufacturers, and anybody else looking to really integrate more digital payment processing.
Yeah. And for me, it also spoke to make sure who has access to the company card. I'm all about people who are reformed, having equal opportunity to get out there in the workforce. But I mean, he was a felon. He was a felon. He had an access to the company card. And, when he was caught, he had a gun on him. So, I mean, maybe not the best character in the world,
Well, you got to think somehow that account was obviously not intended for him.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're right. I mean, more security, more accountability for that kind of stuff.
And when we initially published the story, we didn't mention the note about how the DOJ didn't tell us how he turned this equipment, like where he sold it or how he turned it into these funds. We did reach out to the DOJ, but came up empty. And I was, again, like I said, I was trying to think of how it didn't raise any red flags, especially like what is the gray market for this equipment?
Exactly. That's the weird part.
I can't imagine that he just put it on Marketplace.
It's very specific, like applications for this stuff, like who's buying their Verizon truck parts from.
It reminds me of like some DirecTV guy going rogue and trying to sell a bunch of dishes on Facebook. Just like, you know? Sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, Grainger does sell a ton of stuff. Who knows what he could have bought?
It was all gloves.
Gloves and PP.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Our most popular story this week, historic bridge to be dismantled for billionaires' superyacht.
Yes.
Oh, man. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos commissioned the largest sailing yacht in the world. Yacht builder Oceano is making the 416-foot vessel at its shipyard in the Netherlands. Just upriver from the company is a historic bridge, and it turns out that it's too low to accommodate the 131-foot masts. So, to get the ship to the ocean, local officials have agreed to remove part of the 19th century bridge. Local officials said that they weighed their responsibility for the bridge against the economic impact of the ship's construction before deciding to temporarily dismantle part of the landmark. The city said the owner would cover the project's costs, but stopped short of saying how much it would cost. Got to imagine that he had a little bit of extra income lying around. The bridge will be restored, and hey, a silver lining, Anna. It's going to create some jobs in the process. Now that is trickle-down economics. Wow. The billionaire's yacht is too big to make it to the ocean. It's a job creator.
Yeah, I know. That's good. I'm glad. Unfortunately for Jeff Bezos, he's a pretty easy scapegoat for a problem that's really not his fault.
True.
But I think my conclusion on this is that once you reach billionaire status, there's so much resentment towards you from everyone else on Earth that anything you do that's not transparent, like philanthropy, is going to get criticized.
Yeah.
And he's taken like a lot of hits for, I mean, obviously the space stuff. I think the world sort of reacted with distaste when like mid-pandemic, he and a bunch of other billionaires were like, we're going to go to space first. No, I am. And I don't know.
I didn't know Jeff Bezos had such a deep voice.
Yeah.
Oh, he had a speech coach.
That was Richard Branson
who
started it.
Oh, no, then he would have that
really
sexy accent.
You love that accent.
Richard Branson has the soul of the voice of an angel. Anyway.
If David starts dyeing his hair and beard sort of a reddish tint, we may have to worry about blondish tint.
Anyway, it was tone deaf, I thought, when they were doing that. They're still doing it. Nobody really likes I don't know, it's a very extravagant display. But I don't want to leave this topic without mentioning that Jeff Bezos is also responsible for, because if we're going to shade him, then we should shade him the most for this, building a 500-foot tall clock in the desert that is powered by the Earth's thermal cycles and will tell time for the next 10,000 years. The clock is designed to tick just once a year and chime once per millennium at an estimated cost of $42 million.
What is this?
It's a desert clock, David.
I'm sorry. I had no idea.
What is the utility of this?
It's supposed to be able to tell time for
a clock that tells time
forever.
Whoa.
Yeah,
okay.
Forever. And it's powered. It doesn't require electricity. It's powered by like
10,000 year clock.
But I guess my point is like, don't try to understand the ultra wealthy. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Like once you get to the billionaire level, something breaks in your brain.
Yeah. Jeff. So, Bezos just went through a divorce. If you're a billionaire, is the sports car a $485 million yacht?
Well, Anna definitely put this in perspective for me because, something broke in his brain. If we just want to explain it that way, that's fine, because what kind of person learns that their yacht is too big for a bridge and is just like, move the bridge.
Take the bridge down.
Whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, it'd be like, well, can we scale back a little bit? Make it a little bit longer instead of taller? I don't know.
I like the reader that suggested using rockets to just lift it up and over.
Oh, good idea.
Is he going to run into this problem other places?
I mean,
Oh, good point. Like, how's he going to get under any bridge?
once you're in the ocean,
I mean, is that
I
the thing?
guess,
Like,
yeah.
you can't go to, he's just got to be out in the ocean. Is that
You
why
just
it's
can't dock anywhere.
450
It's
feet?
just keep her.
Let's just set him out to sea and
Yeah.
just forget about it.
He might be into that.
Maybe. Man, like you said, something broke in his brain where any common sense or just even some part of being, I'd almost be like a little embarrassed. Wouldn't you? If like this is getting headlines and
He
this is you.
probably is.
Yeah.
Well, he could have fixed it.
Because he didn't design the boat. So
Yeah.
he probably just wrote a check and was like, build it, and then has no idea what's
Yeah.
happening. And then this,
another $10 million for fixing the bridge. All right.
this
whatever.
occurs. And then they're probably, he maybe didn't even suggest it. Probably this company is like, we have to figure out how to fix this problem because
Yeah.
it's millions of dollars.
He's retired. What else do you have to do?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure.
He's on top of this.
He's got the clock to worry about, Jeff.
I forgot.
I'm
forgot
sure
about
that
making
the-
sure his geothermal power source is still running.
I'm sure the town's getting a little bit of a sweetener there as well. You know, he's not just going to pay for the cost of the bridge, but there's going to be I'm sorry.
Other
Free
ugly American.
Prime membership for 1 year for the whole time. Hold on.
Everyone in Rotterdam gets free Prime. You're not going to get the bridge back though, because I like it.
You get the Lord of the Rings series first.
So I understand the whole super wealthy angle and the anger. And, besides being pretty bad with logistics, this company, Oceano, does beautiful work. And I get, it's not even, it's 1% of the 1%er that are going to buy these super yachts.
Yeah.
But they are incredible. They have the ship that's called the Black Pearl, and it is just beautiful. So it was like, sometimes the design and engineering in these super yachts, they are just gorgeous. And I don't want if you see photos of this boat, it is beautiful, even though it can't get to the ocean.
Yeah.
But this company does great work. Unfortunately, bridge math isn't one of them.
All right.
I mean, just check out that website.
Bridge math.
Yeah.
It's a new one.
Check out that website, but don't stay long because it's like you have that initial excitement where it's like awesome, and then eventually you're sad because it's like, oh yeah, never.
Yeah. Won't see that in real life. Okay.
Yeah, not too many of those like media event invites on yachts. But we'll get one.
Yeah.
Still thinking of the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
When his yacht sinks. It's like he's got to get to the, I don't know, wherever he's going. Can't remember.
Quality ad, Monty.
You bet.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to, in case you missed it, stories that maybe weren't as popular on the website, but do stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. Anna, what is your in case you missed it this week?
Sure thing, David. Talent acquisition firm Lever says that 65% of surveyed Gen Zers, which are those workers born after 1997, who comprise the youngest segment of the workforce, have admitted that they plan to leave their jobs this year. That's 65%.
Man.
2/3. So that compares to about 40% of the surveyed workforce overall. And the report said that 42% of Gen Z workers value a company that gives them a sense of purpose, which is something they rank higher than getting better pay.
Yeah.
Business Insider said that Gen Z has no qualms about quitting their crappy jobs in favor of a better one. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I picked this story because I think it's a good reminder that addressing the talent shortage right now is not just about raising wages.
Yeah.
For industrial businesses, I think that there's a big opportunity to work on culture and kind of find the meaning in what you do and maybe promote that a little bit better. Like if you think about how many manufacturers sort of banded together and pivoted at the beginning of the pandemic to like make PPE or ventilator parts. I mean, that was like a really sort of let's all as a community try to fix this situation that I think was, for being a tough time, was sort of heartwarming to see the manufacturing industry doing that. Or even just running around the clock to support critical industries or workers, right? So it sounds like there's this entire generation of workers who want to hear what you have to say about that. And I think it's time that manufacturers start working more on that messaging because pay and benefits go a long way. But I think, how can you tip the scales toward your business by using a narrative that somebody can get behind? Like, do your products have a safety component? Do they have a sustainability benefit. Talk about that in your recruiting process. Talk about why people want to be there.
Yeah.
I think that's another way that people can kind of skin this cat, as opposed to just saying like, oh, we can't afford to raise our wages, or this is the benefits that we have and nobody wants this, or we can't offer flexibility, which is what manufacturers say a lot. And that's a big thing that these younger generations want. So you can't offer flexibility. Fine. Try to offer maybe a better message. I don't know.
No, I do think that I've seen a lot of positive movement with companies that are trying to create a better sense of community in the culture. There's a lot more of events happening in-house. And you're right, like if they are doing something more sustainable, if their products are, maybe inform them a little bit more about how their products are being used.
Yeah.
When I was in manufacturing, we made a lot of products that went into the dental industry. And I mean, it's odd, but like knowing that it's going into something that people are using medically, it made the job as a quality control sorter that much easier, even though that job was terrible. It's like, okay, this is going to be used whenever somebody needs dental surgery, even though I need to look at 5,000 parts of these a day. Otherwise, I'm a failure. So no, I completely agree. The other thing, Jeff, that I was thinking about this story is that I think people need to be more discerning as to what they want to do in a career path. I think a lot of people sometimes fall into a job or do something that works, and then all of a sudden they're halfway through and they're upset with their career path. Find something that makes you happy. Surround yourself with people, that make it easier to go to work. We talk to so many people that are just hourly workers or non-salaried employees that are just kind of doing their job and it's not making them happy. It doesn't have to be work. It can also be a source of enjoyment in your life.
I mean, if you're lucky, you do find that. It's not always going to be the case.
True.
I think regardless of how you feel about those attitudes and those beliefs in terms of the different generations and how they approach their jobs and their careers, things have changed. And we need to that message needs to evolve with those changes.
Yeah.
It's really irrelevant how you personally feel about that. If you want to get the best possible individuals into your company to get the best possible work done, you need to shift and you need to compete differently. It's not just about pay and benefits anymore. It's about reinforcing that they are having an impact and making a difference. If that's what you need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And it's, I was expecting the whole just like, they just need to get to work.
I know. Well, I thought you were going to tell people to suck it up.
That's why I tried to avoid that by just saying it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be happy.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be productive. Jeff Reinke. That was him.
Again, that voice.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
An uncanny impression. All right. Mine, in case you missed it this week, was partially inspired by the thumbnail created by producer Alex for the video. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Liquid Metal enables shape-shifting drone, or actually the Black Hawk helicopter making a first autonomous flight for Engineering by Design this week, I highly recommend that you check it out because Alex had a little bit of fun with the Photoshop this week.
So you're basically promoting a photo of you?
No. I'm promoting art by our producer, Alex, that I happen to be in.
So did Alex take an existing photo of you at medieval times and then Photoshop it into a field?
I thought he only had the photos of me in chainmail. It turns out that he had the full suit.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, that was the red sword, though. I wish it was the blue sword with the skulls. Now, this story is actually pretty cool, too, because it's researchers from Virginia Tech have created a new shape-shifting soft robot that uses metal, rubber, and temperature to morph materials and then set them in place without any mechanical components. It has a low melting point alloy embedded inside a rubber skin, and when you stretch it, it holds the shape, and then you can heat it up to liquefy the metal to return it back to its original shape. And we're not talking about a lot of heat, about 60 degrees C. I think it's 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, what's cool is that you can integrate different components into the material to create robots that serve various purposes. So, for example, in tests, a robot outfitted with motors, wheels, and propellers was shaped into a mini flying car that drives onto a pad, which heats it, flattens it under the heat, and then it reshapes as a quadcopter, lifts off, and takes off.
What?
Yes, it is awesome. And now we talk about how flying cars and everything.
What size is it?
It's a prototype.
No, I'm not bashing. I'm just saying, like, is it the size like your laptop?
No. It's Wii.
Yeah.
It's we. You're going to hold it in the palm of your hand right now because it is just this like mesh material that's like a proof of concept. And it made me think about how we see these flying cars and it's like a very mechanical transformation from, plane to car. And it's, it looks like, the secondhand Transformers that used to be on the market.
GoBots?
The GoBots are, even the ones that you would get from like the dollar store were like sort of transform, but kind of break apart. This is kind of cool because how like it melts and then resolidifies into a new material. It just opens up a lot of cool applications. Another thing that they showed is they turned it into a submarine. So it was able to reshape, go to the bottom of this tank, collect some rocks from the bottom of the tank, reclose it, and then bring it back. Again, I like looking at this early research that is at the early stages because I like to think of what it could be. I mean, of course, I'm not thinking that we're going to have morphing flying cars anytime soon, but it makes you think a little bit beyond the capabilities of putting, wings on a car.
So is this more Transformers or Terminator? Because when you started like having metal shifting spaces.
Only two options.
I guess it's more Terminator than Transformers because the whole idea is that it can be like a self-healing metal. So it's like the way that it is like, if you were to break a part of it, the metal endoskeleton inside the rubber, when you melt it back down, kind of like T-1000, it would reform or it would go back together for the next time it became a quadcopter.
Is there any artificial intelligence component of this?
Not yet.
Okay. Don't do that.
Oh, God.
And I'm cool with this because, the technology is amazing, but the moment it can start thinking for itself, that's where we get in trouble.
We jumped the gun. We had one person watching us live, Nolan, who asked, is anyone getting T2 vibes from this? Yes, specifically T2 vibes. The other thing, so one thing the researchers came out and said that I didn't get was how this liquefied metal reconstituting into different shapes could be used as a wearable. And so I guess I was thinking like almost like Colossus, where, you're going into something and all of a sudden like the heat from your body or like you could activate it and it would turn metal, and otherwise be loose.
Yeah,
and
that seems like the first thing.
Well, no, like when you think of a wearable, what are you going to need? What are you going to need like a metal wearable for?
I know, like you need like one of those little torches that you can just.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
So that's where the armor thumbnail came in to play. Was I was just like, oh man, you could have a T-shirt made out of this material, and then you would activate it and turn it into metal.
Yeah,
and that would be awesome for like a flash, like that. What was it? The hypercolor stuff that would change colors when you were sweating back in the day.
Yeah.
You know how that worked like 3 times and then it just turned like that weird green? I mean, same.
There you go.
All right. Jeff, what is your in case you missed it this week?
So lately we've had a couple of different stories. Well, actually a lot dealing with plastics and recycling. And I've actually become a lot more informed on this. I was definitely the guy who anything plastic just went into the recycle bin. Yeah. So it's interesting, some of the stuff that's coming out now. One of the stories that caught my eye is chemists developing an easier, more profitable way to recycle plastic. So basically a lot of these plastics, because they can't be recycled, that's how they get into the groundwater. That's how they make their way to the ocean, or they're basically downcycled for stuff like carpet and other things like that. So not a huge impact, better than going in the ocean, but still not the best use potentially. So basically a group of scientists at North Carolina, I'm not going to get into the science because it is way above my understanding.
Yeah.
But they have developed a way where they can take a lot of these plastics that could not otherwise be recycled and form them through a chemical reaction into really useful things. A lot of things they're developing right now are packaging materials, but they're more durable. They're a higher level plastic. So as opposed to going into the waste stream, they're being put to practical use. And as we look at plastics becoming, number one, more and more prevalent in terms of use because they're less expensive, they're lighter weight, all that good stuff, and we just don't have a place to put them, stories like this make me feel a little bit better about things.
Yeah, like they could find another life. That's not just like the person that was like making handbags out of like, plastic garbage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jeff, you were not here this day, but earlier this week, Eric busted me fishing stuff out of the recycling. That was not recyclable though. And I was like sounding off like the super batty old lady. Like, you can't recycle a tea bag. Like,
who was recycling a tea bag?
someone that we work with daily.
Ooh, call him out. Call him out.
Let's find out.
No, ever since we did that story on wish cycling.
Yeah.
Again, kind of opened my eyes. I was not intentionally just like throwing everything in the recycle bin.
Yeah.
But the more you understand what actually can be broken down, I mean,
well,
better.
No, totally. I agree. And what's crazy is like, and California is like the first state to like do something about this, but like a lot of plastic company manufacturers, they put the 3 arrows thing, the triangle on there, which is just sort of like kind of a feel good, like this is made out of plastic. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like it's not always recyclable, but people see that and they think it is recyclable. And it's not their fault that they don't know that. You know what I mean? I think that so California is like, this is deceptive. It's just marketing, right? But to, my point, I guess, is like there's a lot of like, I don't know, they call it like greenwashing, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Going on where people think they're doing the right thing. And then in fact, they're putting stuff in the recycling that's not recyclable.
Yeah, making it worse.
It's not their fault. Yeah.
No, that is I thought it was a particularly interesting story too, because like you said, anytime they can reuse old components that stay out of the waste stream, like you said, I think we need more of it.
Yeah.
Need more of it.
Exactly.
And we'll get to the bottom of this tea bag bandit. I mean, we have like a coffee can for compostable material.
Yeah.
Just toss it in the can.
There was styrofoam in there and a tea bag.
My goodness. I'm sorry I didn't get to see the anger. Just like
it wasn't. It was more just
Let's be better.
Yeah.
Do better.
Yeah.
you should have. Come on, you should have just in everyone's face until you found the culprit. Like, is this your tea bag?
I just
You just dumped it on Tom's desk. That would have gone well.
All right. Well, let's move on to final thoughts. Anna, before we get out of here, is there a final thought that you have for the listeners?
I want to thank our listener, Chuck, for sending me a cool email about static electricity. Again, I've gotten so much support from our audience about this topic, and I appreciate that. But I also want to apologize to Jeff for last week saying that his trivia game had jumped the shark. I was speaking out of frustration because of the walnut answer in your question just threw me off a little bit, but I think the audience is loving it. Let's keep it up. I didn't mean to discourage you. I shouldn't have said it.
I feel better now.
Yeah, that's
good. Okay.
Just carrying that weight around all week.
That's how apologies work. Everyone, the whole world. There you go. See how that works? Where something bad happens and you say you're sorry, and then both parties feel better. It's the timeless classic.
Is there something you need to say that's more specific?
No. There's nothing I need to say, guys. Nothing I need. No. No.
If you want to apologize for putting that tea bag in the recycling, you can.
I went through the tea phase a couple of years ago, and it just wasn't for me. It's easier to not drink coffee than it is to drink tea. I wanted to.
Really?
I completely agree. Just give me water.
You completely agree with yourself?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I mean, it's a simple argument. I was already agreeing with you for agreeing with me. I just didn't let you get there.
Thanks for letting me agree with you.
I also wanted to thank people that reached out when I was sick last week. Thank you for the well wishes. It was terrible, but we're on the other side now and everything's better. The other thing is that as a result of the success of the trivia game, we've been giving out a lot of shirts. And I was just interested if maybe it's time to switch it up in terms of like today manufacturing swag.
Yeah.
If anyone has ideas, I was thinking like maybe hats or coffee cups.
Ooh, stress balls.
Stress ball. Wow.
Immediate veto.
Let's just get Anna a stress ball. She
right?
seemed to really be on
I need one.
Sitting at her like desk, clenching those hand exercise. So if there's anything in particular that, especially the people that are repeatedly winning, if you're in a cold climate and you want a hat, or if you would prefer like a coffee mug, I guess we're open to ideas because we're looking at opening the purse strings a little bit. Jeff, what's your final thought here?
Before I get to trivia.
Oh, okay.
Just wanted to do a shout out. We've actually had a chance to work with a lot of cool people, organizations, including I think each of us have at one point in time worked with a different manufacturing extension partnership.
Oh, yeah.
Around the country. We've got a really good one here in Wisconsin. Through a colleague of ours, I've actually been in touch with the folks out at the New Jersey MEP. And just wanted to kind of give them a shout out. Next week, February 21st through the 25th, they're celebrating Engineering Week. So we invite you to go to njmep.com. They're going to be doing some stuff, looking at some of their members who are going to be sharing their stories about working in the modern manufacturing industry. We're also going to do some stuff on manufacturing.net to help spread the word about opportunities that manufacturing offers, looking at stuff about how we're breaking down outdated stigmas, highlighting alternate educational and career paths. So just some cool stuff that the New Jersey MEP is doing. And we're working with them to kind of get the word out.
So is it Engineering Week just in New Jersey, or is like next week is that week Engineering Week?
They're celebrating Engineering Week, so I don't think they're going to not allow us to do it.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the work that the MEPs do. They are a real resource, particularly for small and mid-sized manufacturers. Yeah. And what's up, Kurt? How you doing? That's our mutual friend.
Yeah, I'm in touch with Mike Womack out there. They're also going to be celebrating the Year of Women in Manufacturing in 2022 by highlighting women manufacturing business leaders and giving them a platform to be role models, encouraging more young women to explore modern manufacturing as a career path. So just some really cool stuff they're doing. Want to give them a shout out and encourage everybody to check that out.
Yeah, definitely do that. That's really cool.
Now, to what everybody's doing. And it has been really cool. You guys are saying we're getting a ton of feedback on the trivia questions. People just kind of like participating, having fun with it. So that's cool. For those who are interested, we had even more people actually respond to this one. The correct answer in terms of when using a hammer, the thing you should never do, you never hit another hammer with a hammer. Why not, David?
I would assume because it would shatter or maybe spark or just be generally unsafe.
All of the above. Yeah, I was thinking more about sparking, but yeah, it's actually more the chipping. You have to worry about different grades of steel on the hammers. And yeah, it can definitely be a chipping concern. So congratulations to everybody that we did send out some more shirts. Oh, cool. Also, we've got a scoreboard update. Marina is up to 6 in a row.
Whoa.
Ooh. Mark at 3 and Kyle at 2. So she's got some competition.
Kyle's on the board.
Yeah.
And you know what? I could answer that question very confidently. When I heard you ask it live last week, as a person who has smashed hammers together, as a child, I know that's unsafe. It was one of those where my dad didn't get mad. He just said, "You learned a lesson, didn't you?"
Yeah,
I did.
Well, the other one is pounding nails in over. If you've ever actually attempted to do that, there is like a plethora of things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So
really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I mean,
definitely.
Okay.
Not a best practice, but not as unsafe as hitting 2 hammers together.
Okay.
But the walnut thing is fine, right?
Oh yeah.
Just
not a problem.
Keep crushing those nuts.
Just wear some safety glasses.
Gonna need that soundbite. Yeah. All right.
So this week. Now, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. To be honest, I am running out of good questions from the Wagner Products safety trivia cards here.
Okay.
So if there is a different source, I'd be definitely open to hearing about it. So I'm going to, basically, this is a fill in the blank question.
Okay.
So the first thing I'm looking for is when it comes to fatal accidents, what fraction, so it could be 1/2, 2/3, 5/8, okay, more occur in urban or rural areas. So in other words,
so like what percentage occurs in urban or a rural area?
Right. Okay. So which area do they occur more in?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. So blank of fatal accidents, blank occurs in blank area. So what could it be? 1/2 of all fatal accidents occur in urban areas, or 5/8 of all fatal accidents occur in rural areas.
So you got a two-parter?
Got a two-parter. We're gonna make it a little bit tougher, because people have been nailing these.
Those streaks are on the line.
A little more interesting this week. So, what percentage rural versus urban when it comes to fatal accidents?
Whoa!
I have no idea. I don't even know where to start on that
one. No.
And I feel like no matter what I think the answer is, it winds up being some sort of ugly stereotype in my mind.
I did get the area correct. I would not have guessed the percentage.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The fraction. So.
All right.
That was pretty good.
Well, before we get out of here, I want to once again thank our sponsor, Oil Eater. Please make sure to click the link below or go to ien.com/Oil Eater to get yourself a free sample of Oil Eater degreaser or cleaner, or both. Both. Okay. Right on. All right. Well, for Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti, and please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, Anna, or David at ien.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also reach Andy at ien.com too.
You can always reach Andy.
Always reach out to Andy. You know what? give him one of those digital hugs. He can give one of those every once in a while. And you can also subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters. Make sure you get the podcast in your inbox first. All right, now for Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.